Dexter Knight, written by Jordan Ray Little, cover art by C. Walker, edited and formatted by Angel Editing. Chapter 1. Roland sighed deeply and placed his hands high on his hips. Staring out the front window of the tank, his eyes fell on the massive chasm that had been created only a few days ago. The chasm was over 30 meters in length and had smoke bellowing from its depths. "Is there any radiation?" Roland asked, his voice reverberating off the steel-gray walls. The tank he rode in was over 10 meters in length and easily housed 20 soldiers. The top of the tank held a large cannon that fired laser rounds. The sides of the tank were decorated with an assortment of missile pods, with laser ports that were mounted to the front. In the past, such a reading was next to impossible. The planet they were on was a moon located in the 14th galaxy. The moon was filled with toxic fumes, which could easily be mixed with radiation. But like always, technology improved and such a reading was possible. Roland was in his late 20s. He stood over 6 feet tall, had broad shoulders, with muscular arms and legs. His head was completely shaved. He had dark brown eyes that were considered piercing and sometimes cold. He wore black armor. Wrapped around his waist was a combat belt. Connected to his right hip was a holster where a sleek laser pistol sat ready to be used. Even though Roland and the rest of his men were part of the Earth military force, none of them had been born on the planet. In fact, none of them had even seen the planet in person. At a computer terminal a few feet away from Roland sat a tall, brunette woman named Gale. The woman was only a few years younger than Roland was. She had dark brown eyes, small rounded shoulders, and ample breasts. The woman was clothed in a white uniform. Not only did she run the computers on the tank, but she was also second in command. "No sir," Gale said. Taking her eyes off the terminal, she turned to face her commander. "But I am getting a signal from the chasm. It's weak, but it means the ship is still intact." Roland nodded. "That means we're going to have to go down there. Right?" she asked. A look of trepidation could be seen on her usually calm contours. "You know it," Roland said, smirking. Gale knew the answer before she even told him the information about the signal. Gale and Roland had both enlisted in the military at the same time. While training, they learned a lot about each other. Roland had come from a long line of military men and women and it was sort of a rite of passage. He however had moved up in ranks, while the rest of his family remained soldiers. "Well then," Gale said, standing. "I'll let everyone know we're heading out." Moments later, suited up in special suits that filtered out the moon poisons, all 21 men and women, including Roland, were heading towards the chasm. Each man brandished laser pistols, rifles or laser grenades. A look of fear could be seen on everyone's faces. "Sir," Gale said, stopping suddenly. They were only a few meters from the chasm. "We have a ship heading our way." Roland turned on his heel, scanning the skies. "There," he said, a hint of aggravation could be detected in his voice. On the horizon was a small ship. The ship had a pointed nose and on its wings was an assortment of laser weaponry. "What is that?" asked a soldier from the back. "Intergalactic Space Cadet," Roland muttered, shaking his head. He recognized the make of the ship immediately. It was a Mars battle cruiser. It was a top-of-the-line model. The Intergalactic Space Cadets were usually hated by the military because they had higher authority than they did. When they wanted to, they could take over any operation and usually did. Roland despised them greatly, but would have been the first to admit they did a lot of good for everyone. They took on any mission, they helped anyone who called for them. Human or not. But it was their attitudes he couldn't stand. Everyone watched as the ship sat down a few meters away. As the top of the ship opened, a long-haired, blonde-headed woman emerged wearing a mask over her mouth and nose. The woman wore a black uniform that had gray lines etched into it, giving it a brick-like appearance. The front of her coat had 3 large buckles that kept it closed. She also was wearing matching gloves and boots. Even though the woman's uniform looked as though it were made of plastic, Roland knew better. The uniform was made of a special kind of fabric that made it impervious to most kinds of attacks. It could even survive some explosions. Located on the back of the uniform was a holster where a large, older-looking laser pistol sat waiting to be used. The pistol looked pretty reliable, but was a decade old. The color of her uniform indicated her rank as an intergalactic space cadet. Since hers was black and had gray lines etched into its fabrics, it meant she was like him. A commander. A beginner space cadet would wear a bright blue uniform with black lines etched into it, while a normal space cadet would wear a red uniform with black lines etched into it. The woman turned towards the men and waved. As she did, the hilt of a sword appeared. Taking up the sword, the woman swung it towards her back. The sword was long, over 5 feet in length. Near her shoulder, a small circular device activated and black ribbons emerged from it and wrapped lovingly around the blade. "Behave yourselves, men," Roland breathed. The space cadet hopped down from her ship and made her way towards the men. "Roland?" she asked, stepping up to the commander. "Yeah," Roland said, extending his hand. "That's me." Roland was surprised to see the woman had no problem shaking his hand. "It's nice to meet you, sir. My name is Kelly Knight. I came to help you guys." Now that the space cadet was closer, Roland could see the woman was only a few inches shorter than he was and had bright blue eyes. She had small rounded shoulders, perky breasts, and looked like she could handle herself in a fight. "Really?" Roland asked. A hint of sarcasm could be detected in his voice. "Are you sure you're not here to take over?" Kelly shook her head. "No, I'm here to help. I've read your record, sir. I know you're more than capable of leading this mission. Command me like I was one of your own. I'm really here to help." She's full of surprises, Roland thought. "Why are the Intergalactic Space Cadets concerned about the ship?" Roland asked. "It's of unknown origins. No one knows where it came from, who made it." "That means it could be a risk," said Kelly. Roland knew the woman was right. "All right then. Everyone get ready," the commander shouted, turning towards his men. He could see a few were annoyed that their commander hadn't grilled the space cadet as they dreamed of doing. Kelly removed her laser pistol and made sure the power cells were fully charged. Moving towards the lip of the chasm, the team peered down. Beyond was a slope that led into a dark tunnel. "Great," said Gale. The team made their way down the slope until they reached the tunnel. "Wait," Gale said, holding up her hand, halting the team. Holding up her wrist, she pressed a small button on the back of her hand. Suddenly, a small panel appeared on the woman's wrist revealing several buttons. "What's that for?" Kelly asked. Kelly didn't notice until just then that the arm was a prosthetic. She could only wonder how she had lost it. "Watch," Gale said. She pressed some buttons. Suddenly, small orbs appeared from out of the tank and flew inside the tunnel. Once they reached the opening, the orbs lit up, illuminating the tunnel beyond. The entire team was surprised to see the walls of the tunnel weren't rugged, but smooth as though it had been carved out by machines. Without speaking, everyone slipped inside. Not letting it slow them down, the team continued down the long tunnel. The orbs floated ahead, lighting up their path. So Roland began, looking at Kelly through the corners of his eyes. "What's it like being a space cadet?" "Looking at that uniform, I'm sure you've met some interesting people." "Things," he said. "Well, I've led an interesting life, but..." Kelly reached into her uniform and removed a data disk. A data disk was a small circular object that could project a small holographic image. Kelly handed the data disk over to Roland. Pressing a green button, a picture of Kelly holding a small blonde-headed boy in her hands appeared. The boy looked a lot like Kelly. He had blonde hair and bright blue eyes. "Your son?" Roland asked. Kelly giggled. "Yep. My baby boy. Dexter Albert Knight." "He is going to hate the name Albert," Roland said as he pressed the green button again. A new image of Dexter appeared. This one had him trying to put on his mom's boots. "What do you mean? Albert's a great name," Kelly exclaimed. She tried to sound upset, but couldn't help but laugh. She loved her son so much. She couldn't imagine life without him. And she always carried a data disk with his photos on it.